It's a pleasure and a privilege to be here at the MCB dinner. Forgive me if I start with a joke, and forgive me if it's one you've heard before. A man is walking through a park in London, and he sees a small child being attacked by a dog. He intervenes, pulls the dog off the child, crazy animal, fights with the dog, keeps its jaws open, kills the dog, saves the child. At that moment, a photographer is walking through the same London park, takes pictures of this whole incident. He says to the man, "You are a lucky man that I was walking through the park at this moment. I am going to make you a hero. Every newspaper tomorrow morning will have your photo on the front page. And the headline will read, 'Brave British hero saves innocent child from mad dog.'" The man says, "There's a slight problem." He says, "What is it?" He says, "I'm not British." He says, "That's fine. The headline will be, 'Brave Londoner saves innocent child from mad dog.'" He says, "I'm not from London either." He says, "Where are you from?" He says, "I'm a student recently arrived from Pakistan." The next day, the Daily Express headline says, "Islamic fundamentalist asylum seeker kills innocent British dog." Links to Al-Qaeda being investigated. I've been telling that joke for several years, and I now believe that we live in an era of Daily Express where it could actually happen. Some of you may remember that when the Pope visited the country a few months ago, 5 Algerian street cleaners were arrested on anti-terror charges, released 24 hours later without any charges. But the Express went with "Muslim plot to kill the Pope." All of us, we were all plotting to kill Benedict XVI. And that's what I want to talk about tonight. That's what I was asked to talk about tonight. And that is Islamophobia and how we deal with it, how we respond to it. In a speech at the start of this year, as Farouk mentioned, Sayeeda Warsi, Conservative Party chairman, and by the way, she insists on calling herself chairman, her choice. Conservative Party chairman, cabinet minister, Muslim woman, she said that Islamophobia had passed, quote, "the dinner table test." It was the last acceptable form, socially acceptable form of bigotry in this country. And depressingly, speaking as a journalist, not only do I agree with her, but actually it's my profession, the media, which is driving much of this anti-Muslim sentiment. It's the media which churns out Islamophobic headlines, editorials, stories, columns, imagery. You can now say things about Muslims in the British press that you could not say about members of any other minority group. A few years ago, in 2008, 3 years ago, when I worked at Channel 4, I commissioned a film for Dispatches called "It Shouldn't Happen to a Muslim," which was fronted by the then Mail columnist, now Telegraph columnist Peter Oborne, who I'm delighted to see sitting in the audience here tonight. And Peter took a collection of headlines, real headlines from newspapers, and put them on a board about Muslims, and then put fake headlines on the other side in which substituted the word Muslim for another minority group. So instead of "Muslim sickos Maddie kidnap shock," which was a Daily Star headline, was changed to "Gay sickos Maddie kidnap shock." Instead of "Now Muslims tell us how to run our schools," it was changed to "Now black people tell us how to run our schools." Instead of "Christmas is banned, it offends Muslims," it was changed to "Christmas is banned, it offends Jews." And we took these boards out into a shopping centre in Essex, and when people saw the fake headlines, they were outraged. "This is disgusting. How can you have boards like this?" And when Peter flipped the headline, they went, "Oh yeah." So inured to it, so immune to it. And it's not just the tabloid media. I mean, we get excited about the Express and the Sun and the Mail, etc., etc. Even the BBC, which does so much good work on religion, on Islam, on interfaith activities, we shouldn't forget that. And I'm not just saying that because the head of religion, Akhil Ahmed, is sitting 10 feet to my right. But even the BBC has its bad days. I went on Sunday Morning Live, the Sunday programme in Northern Ireland, with a man named Stephen Green from Christian Voice. Rather controversial individual, who was invited on to make a film which claimed that Britain is too, quote, "soft on Islam." Too soft on Islam. I wish. And I said to the presenter that day, "Would you use licence fee money to allow Anjum Chowdhury to come on and make a 2-minute film saying Britain is soft on Judaism?" She said, "Of course we would." I'm still waiting to see that film. Hasn't happened, it wouldn't happen, because you can say things about Islam and Muslims unconsciously even, that you would not say about any other groups. So the question tonight is, I don't want to take up too much of your time, I'm waiting for starters, as are you. There are 3, what can we do about it? 3 things. There are lots of things you can do about it. Here are 3 things that come to mind. Number 1, we have to, as a community and as individuals, lobby the media. We have to hold the press to account. And yes, we've been saying this for years. At every event I go to, people say this or I say this. We must hold the media to account. But do we actually do it? Is there a strategy in place? Is it done on a common or coherent or consistent basis? There are 2 million Muslims in this country. We lack a lot of things. We don't lack numbers. And yet, here's a question. Let's have a show of hands in this hall from front to back. How many people in this room complained to the Daily Express or to the Press Complaints Commission when they ran their Muslim plot to kill the Pope headline? Raise your hands if you complained. How many people wrote in to the BBC to say, actually, we didn't like Stephen Green saying Britain's too soft on Islam? We're not very good at it. In an age of text and email and Twitter and Facebook, it's not hard to mobilize or organize opposition to something or a protest to something. Just ask the Egyptians or the Tunisians. It's not hard to do. And I'm not just talking about complaining here. Farouk mentioned it's not just about complaining. He's right. There's a positive side to things as well. When the BBC, when Akil's department or the News and Current Affairs department, when Channel 4 make positive documentaries about Muslims, and there are many out there, positive series, when newspaper journalists write very, very important pieces about injustices done in issues we care about, how many of us take time out to praise them, to send an email of support, to write in, to tell our friends to buy that newspaper or watch that program? We're not very good at complaining, we're not very good at supporting. You look at someone like Peter, who writes for The Telegraph, who wrote a blog recently in defense of Saeed Avasi. I don't know the number off, I think it was something like 200 and something odd, what we call trolls, turned up below the line to heap Islamophobic abuse on Saeed Avasi, Peter Oborne, every other Muslim going. How many of people in this room went on the Telegraph blog to defend what Peter was saying and support his work? Show of hands? Oh, 4 in the corner, well done, you get extra starters. But my point is that not just people like Peter or myself or others, across the media there are people, across politics there are people who need the support of British Muslims, not just the criticism and complaining and whining and whinging. We as British Muslims cannot stick in our heads in the sand and remain silent any longer. Number 2, we have to build up role models inside our own communities, rather than always looking outside of our communities. We have to build our own next generation of leaders, spokespersons, role models. Because I'm sorry to say we don't really have any. Not right now. Not of any national prominence. It's all very well blaming the media for the misrepresentation of Muslims, but we have to look at ourselves and ask the question, why is it so many people who go out onto television or radio claiming to speak on behalf of Muslims are so poor, so unrepresentative, so embarrassing, I'm afraid to say. We have to look at our own communities and wonder, why is it that we are not teaching our children, the next generation, how to speak, how to debate, how to write, how to communicate, how to be spokespersons and ambassadors? I remember back in 2001, in September 2001, I was working on the Jonathan Dimbleby program, and my boss said to me, I was a researcher, and he said, go out, we're going to have a big panel debate, 9/11 attacks, basically every week, that's all we ever did. He said, go out and find some big-name, prominent Muslim to come on and defend Islam. There weren't any. There wasn't any. There wasn't any household names, there weren't people who didn't have any baggage, things have changed in the past 10 years. And mashallah, there are more and more educated and eloquent spokespersons in our community. But still, far too few on our screens and on the radio. And number 3, we have to reach out beyond our communities. If we are going to defeat Islamophobia and show that we are an integrated community, we have to reach out beyond our communities. We Muslims have made huge advances in terms of our integration, despite what David Cameron might say in Munich. But we are still, in my view, still too insular. We don't reach out enough. We don't build enough bridges. We don't make enough friends. This, 2011, the 21st century, is an age of pluralism, not tribalism. This is an age where we look outwards. And when we look at our own history, you look at Ali ibn Abu Talib, companion of Rasulullah, companion of the Prophet, 4th Khalifa of the Ahl Sunnah, first Imam of the Shias. What did he say? He said, remember that every man is your brother. He is either your brother in faith or he is your brother in humanity. Every man is your brother. And you look around the world today, you take Japan and the tsunami in Japan. I'm delighted to see, when I went on the Islamic Relief website, when I went on the Muslim Aid website, when I went on the MCB website, I'm delighted to see that organizations are speaking out about the tragedy in Japan and urging Muslims to contribute to the fundraising and the donations in Japan. But now it requires those of us to step forward and dig deep into our pockets and show that we Muslims don't just give charitable contributions when people die in natural disasters in Iran or Pakistan, but also in Haiti or Japan or wherever else. This is a time to break those walls and to build bridges across the world. If we don't break down these barriers, especially my generation and the next generation, this them and us mindset, we have no way, no hope of defeating the many Islamophobes in our community who want to divide us rather than unite us. And on that note, I'm sorry to say, and I don't mean to fulfill any controversial role, I'm just speaking my mind, but on that note, the decision, for example, by the Muslim Council of Britain in recent years to boycott Holocaust Memorial Day, in my humble view, was a mistake. It was wrong because it played into the hands of Islamophobes. You can agree with me or disagree with me. We are in the midst of a battle, to use Tony Blair and George Bush's immortal words, a battle for hearts and minds. We have our own battle for hearts and minds. And the issue is, the question is, what are we going to do to win hearts and minds outside of this room, across the media, in Parliament, in your school, in your college, in your workplace? What are you going to do to reach out and alter mindsets, change people's opinions? Who are we going to bring forward as our positive role models? It's not enough for us simply to sit back, shut our mouths, whinge at home, go to work, keep our heads down, mind our own business, and pretend that we can carry on like this, because we can't. And we have to show our fellow Britons that we British Muslims, we are here to stay. We are not going anywhere else. We don't have any other homelands or divided loyalties. We're British. Many of us were born here. Most of us will die here. This is our country, and in line with the very British and very Islamic values of freedom, tolerance, justice, equality, we will not allow ourselves to be demonized or misrepresented or denied our basic rights. And I want to finish by saying that I continue to believe that Britain, despite some of the flaws of its media, despite some of the rhetoric of its politicians, Britain is still the best place in Europe to live as a Muslim. But we have to work hard collectively and individually to ensure it stays that way. Thank you very much for your time.